Hello She-Hulk fans and welcome back to Nerd Doc. In this video we're going to break down She-Hulk episode 1, including the post-credit scene, music from the episodes, a few Easter eggs, and things of that nature. That means there will be spoilers for She-Hulk episode 1. If you do not wish to be spoiled, you can check out our spoiler-free review linked in the description below. There are chapter timestamps so you can jump around the video as you wish. If you have any questions about the episode, or She-Hulk in general, or want to let us know what you thought of the first episode, leave a comment below. Let's start off with the music from the episode. While we can't play any of the songs here because of YouTube copyright, you can find all the music from the episode in the description below, with Spotify and YouTube links where applicable. The two main songs you're probably looking for are Fast Motion by Saweetie, which played during the training montage, and Who's That Girl from Eve, which played during the end credits. With that out of the way, let's jump right into the episode. At the very start of episode 1, Jennifer Walters is already She-Hulk. Her best friend Nikki is one of the few people who knows Jen is She-Hulk. Nikki doesn't exist in the comics, but she's basically the MCU version of Louise Mason, who worked closely with Jen and was one of her best friends, just like Nikki in the show. In the comics, Louise is a legacy character from the 1940s. While she doesn't have any powers, her alter ego is the Blonde Phantom, and she was a crime fighter with her husband, Mark Mason. We probably won't see Nikki become a crime fighter in She-Hulk, which may be why she's Nikki instead of Louise, but it's not entirely out of the question. Nikki and Jen make fun of the references to Savage She-Hulk and Hulk Smash, both from the comics, before Jen breaks the fourth wall for the first time and we get a flashback to how she became She-Hulk. You may recognize the fourth wall breaking from Deadpool, but She-Hulk comics actually broke the fourth wall before Deadpool did it.
I know, right?
We see Bruce Banner and Jennifer Walters riding in a car, discussing Captain America's dating life and whether or not he's had time to date at all. Make note of this as it will come up again. Bruce mentions Ched Banner, Jen's cousin, but also a character that doesn't exist in the comics, so this is another new character for the MCU. The beginning of She-Hulk takes place at the same time as Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which is after Endgame and WandaVision, but before the Eternals and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Despite this flashback only being a few months in the past, Bruce is not Smart Hulk. He has an inhibitor on his arm that is keeping the gamma radiation in check and allowing him to remain in his Bruce Banner form. This is also allowing Bruce's arm to heal from when he used the Infinity Stones in Avengers Endgame, something that couldn't be done before due to him being Smart Hulk. This most likely has something to do with the gamma radiation keeping the damage from the Infinity Stones preserved, so restricting the gamma radiation allows the wound to finally heal. A courier spacecraft from Sakaar blocks the road ahead and the car ends up crashing. If you recall, this ship looks very similar to the Grandmaster ship from Thor Ragnarok. After the accident, Jen cuts herself trying to escape the vehicle, then gets some of Bruce's blood in her wound when she tries to free him from the car. This causes her to transform into She-Hulk and black out, most likely due to the shock and stress of the transformation on her body. At this point, she can't control the transformations or her actions while she's in Hulk form, but after waking up as Jen later that evening, she happens across the Ideal Sports Bar, which is actually a real bar in Atlanta where She-Hulk was filmed. Jen has an encounter with some men and turns into She-Hulk again, just as Smart Hulk catches up with her, tackles her to the ground, and takes her back to his remote lab in Mexico. This origin is a bit different from what happens in the comics. Jen's transformation into She-Hulk in the comics comes via a blood transfusion from Bruce after a mob boss tries to take her out when he thinks she has evidence to lock him up. The series basically skips most of the story arcs from She-Hulk's first few comic runs. These mostly dealt with the mob boss and Jen working for the district attorney, as well as some stuff with the Fantastic Four, which we may eventually get to once they're introduced in a couple of years. She-Hulk basically takes over for the Thing as a member of the Fantastic Four for a little while. Getting back to the series, Bruce mentions that the ship that caused the accident was probably trying to deliver a message to him, and he'll have to look into that later. This is foreshadowing the plot leak we mentioned in our She-Hulk Rumors video. We won't spoil that here, but if you do want to be spoiled, you can check out that video in the description below. Back in Mexico, Bruce helps Jen understand her powers, quickly discovering that she's really good at being a Hulk and can control her powers much better than Bruce ever could. She-Hulk also doesn't have a dark passenger split personality like Bruce and Hulk. There's also a very important scene here in which Smart Hulk explains that Jen's blood mixed with Bruce's gamma-infused blood created a new concoction that helped heal his arm and could potentially turn others into Hulks. This is more foreshadowing and confirmation of another rumor mentioned in our recent video. In the lab, which was built for Bruce by Tony Stark, we see one of Iron Man's broken helmets. At a glance, this looks like one of the broken Ultron bot helmets. Bruce and Tony use this lab during the blip to figure out how to merge Banner and Hulk into Smart Hulk. During that time, Tony was still very upset at Steve Rogers, but also missed his friend. Bruce confirms that he's been struggling with the Hulk for 15 years, making references to falling out of the sky in the first Avengers movie, Natasha calming him down in Avengers Age of Ultron, and the time he was stuck as Hulk for 2 years, which includes the events of Thor Ragnarok. Smart Hulk also tries to teach She-Hulk about dialectical behavioral therapy, which is a real thing that combines mindfulness, acceptance, and emotional regulation into a potent therapy. It's usually used to treat people who are suicidal, but in this case, Smart Hulk is using it to help Jen cope with what he thinks is her life being completely changed. While her life is changing, the changes aren't quite as drastic as they were for Bruce, since She-Hulk can control herself much better. There's a training montage and eventually a fight between the two Hulks that shows a lot of classic Hulk attacks and nods to the comics, such as the Thunderclap. After the training montage, the two take a break, and Smart Hulk shows Jen that they have a much faster metabolism, meaning they can drink a ton and barely get drunk. However, the effects only last so long as Jen is in her She-Hulk form. If she changes back before the alcohol has run its course, she will feel the effects of whatever she drank, including a hangover in the morning. While they're drinking, Jen mentions that she doesn't want to be a superhero. Specifically, she doesn't want to join a secret government contractor squad. This is a nod to the Thunderbolts, which is the team Val is currently building and that Abomination will almost certainly be part of. Jen eventually goes back to work, and the show picks up where we left off before the flashback. Jen breaks the fourth wall to confirm that only Bruce, their family, and Nikki know about She-Hulk, but that doesn't last long as Titania breaks into the courtroom during one of Jen's cases. Jen is forced to turn into She-Hulk to stop Titania, revealing to everyone that she's a Hulk and bringing the episode to a close. Now before we get to the post-credits scene, let's discuss the actual credits. In many of the episodes, the first part of the credits offers a glimpse into the events of the episode that we may not have seen on camera. For example, in this episode, we see the aftermath of She-Hulk's damage to Bruce's lab, as well as Jen's obsession with Steve Rogers' sex life and a diagram she made trying to figure out if he's a virgin or not. The chart references Peggy Carter, an unknown USO girl, and a mystery woman. Moving on to the post-credit scene, it goes back to Jen and Smart Hulk drinking in Mexico. Jen is pretending to be drunk so she can get more information about Captain America. If you recall, she was asking about Steve Rogers' dating life when they got into the accident earlier in the episode, which was also referenced in the credits leading up to this scene. Jen wants to know if Steve has ever had sex or if he's a virgin. This also confirms she doesn't know Steve went back to the past and stayed there in Avengers Endgame, which means Bruce never told her. Smart Hulk confirms that Steve lost his virginity to a girl in 1943 while on the USO tour, which was probably this girl, who he was clearly attracted to when she says hello and asks for an autograph backstage. When Jen learns this information, she exclaims, "Captain America, as the scene comes to an end. So what did you think of the first episode of She-Hulk? Where do you think the show is going? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to check back next week for our breakdown of episode 2. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with someone who loves Hulk, She-Hulk, and Thunderclaps.